Kuhn is the fullback with the first and goal. Kuhn gets the call. Pyle driving his way in for the touchdown. What a great second effort. Here comes the. Y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the. Y'all don't really want it like that. I said so. I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood. So ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. We're your lead blocker for all your fantasy situations, all your fantasy glory, all your fantasy championships. And it's freaking middle of March, and we're blocking like we've never blocked before because there's a lot of action going on. I mean, this is like we did an emergency pod, I want to say like a week ago, and it was legit. Like we had real news to discuss, and it seems just dwarfed in comparison to what we're about to dive into today. It's like the news has just kept coming. We've got unretirements, we've got massive contracts, we've got trades, we've got like legal issues and spill off of that. There's a lot going on. I'm your host, Ned the Truth Jones. With me as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. Wolf, how you doing? I mean, you keeping busy here in mid-March?
Oh, I love it. I mean, every single day there's some new bomb being dropped that keeps us just churning over here. I had an emergency, like you said, we did an emergency pod middle of last week. I did an emergency Friday pod on Deshaun Watson getting cleared. So if you haven't seen that, I kind of went through his top 5 landing spots. A bunch of those have gotten crossed off based on free agency and some moves these last couple of days, but still worth checking out as we looked at speculating where he could land. We have some news on that we're going to cover on that front. But then also, tampering day. I know it's not technically the free agency day, but this is truly the first day of free agency. And we've got some big moves already today. Some huge deals, some that make no sense, some that make great fitting sense. So I can't wait to break it all down. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that I would just consider kind of run-of-the-mill NFL guys that, their children and their children's children will never have to work again now. So,
oh, yeah.
Good for them, I guess. Of course, if you have not already done so, give us a like and, tell people we're on. This is not our regularly scheduled time, but, we know we'll get some podcast listens and some watch backs of the video. And, of course, we'll have our diehard lunatic fans that will at least pop in and make an appearance. If you got any comments, questions you want us to answer, throw them in the comments section and we'll definitely get to them. I have to jet out around 8:30, but the Wolf, there's no curfew for this guy. He can
I got no
like 11. Right. All right, let's get into the news. And the biggest news by far, and it's not even close. And it's unclear to me whether we saw this coming or not. I'm not really sure. I kind of went back and forth. I'm like, oh, I knew it. And then I'm like, but did I? I don't know. I'm not shocked, but it's huge news. Tom Brady, he's back. Spotlight was off him for a couple of weeks. That wasn't okay with him. He's coming back. He's going to be with the Bucs next season. Allegedly, I'm not convinced of that, just for whatever it's worth. I'm convinced that he's coming back. I don't know 100% that he's going to end up with the Bucs. I mean, it didn't seem like Arians was being that cool to him kind of in the wake of his retirement. And I don't know, maybe Arians gets the hook. What do you think?
Yeah, to me, it seems like he already said, I'm going to be returning to the Bucs. I know, whatever he says does not necessarily mean he's locked in there. But I do know at the Combine, Arians was saying, if Tom Brady's playing, he's with us. It would take 5 first-round picks to come and get him. So I do think there's some credence to him being with the Buccaneers, unless he wouldn't have come out of retirement otherwise. So I think he was trying to leverage the retirement, and then maybe I can come unretire and get to a new team. They played hardball.
Right. They did play hardball.
And it worked. It seems to me like they have decided, we're going with Bruce Arians and we're going with you, Brady, if you want to. And then he's finally kind of jumped back on board and seems to be going. And honestly, for fantasy purposes, this is the perfect spot. This is exactly where you'd want him after he was the QB3 last year, led the NFL at age 44 in passing yards, in touchdowns, just insanity. And I don't see any reason why after now he's been second or higher in passing yards, second or higher in passing touchdowns in back-to-back years, why we should expect anything other than top 3 stats in both categories this year. Should also be a big bump, beyond himself. He's right at QB6 for me. And maybe even too low on that front. We'll see as the rankings shake out here. But right up in that top tier around Herbert, around Deshaun Watson, assuming he plays all the games, Kyler Murray, all kind of bunched in that like elite QB1s behind only that tier of Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes for me. So I love this for Brady. I love it for his fantasy value. And I especially love it for Mike Evans and for Chris Godwin. They were the wide receiver 10 and 12 last year in total points. Godwin was the wide receiver 6 in points per game. Evans, the wide receiver 11.
And Godwin missed significant time. Right?
Exactly, yeah. It still was the number 10 receiver in fantasy. I mean, he had games where he had 17 and 19 targets across last season.
Those are Darren Waller numbers.
Yes, it's Darren Waller week 1 and then disappearance numbers. But amazing just the way Brady peppers him out of the slot, as he always has with his weapons out of the slot. But Godwin just the best athlete he's ever played with at the position. So coming off the ACL tear, that's the only question now with Godwin is how fully healthy is. The way the athletes have been recovering these days, I'm not overly worried. It sounds like it was a clean tear. Recovery's going well. So both of those guys right back inside my top 20 receivers. Evans in the top 10. Godwin, I do have at wide receiver 18. If I get some encouraging news, like he is running full speed, he's expected back for training camp, there's no reason to rank him outside the top 12 either at that point. And then Rob Gronkowski, the waterfall effect to this, the dominoes here is
a good point.
Now Gronk is likely going to come back after he was the tight end 3 in fantasy points per game. Monster game after game last year, looked as healthy as he's looked, should be right back in the top 5 or 6 tight ends, assuming he's back, in my opinion. And then the last kind of domino to fall there will be the running back situation. Do they bring back Leonard Fournette, who's the running back 5 in fantasy?
Yeah, I heard Fournette deleted some Instagram post that he had made about bye to the city of Tampa, and now he's just pretending that never happened.
Never happened, right? Exactly. Please bring me back. Get the gang all back together, and they have brought back a good amount. In terms of defense, in terms of offense, they're trying to get everybody back. They've lost a couple linemen, but you imagine Fournette's going to be trying to get back, even if it's just a 1-year deal, to continue playing on this squad where he was 2nd in running back targets, 5th in fantasy points, was just a usage monster. So the ideal fantasy situation is him returning and being that workhorse. But if he doesn't, this is by far the number 1 value hole out there for running backs at this point. We're going to go over some news. The other top 3 for me were the Cardinals and Dolphins alongside the Brady-led Bucs. But at this point, both of those have been filled with 2 names we'll chat about in just a little bit. So that just opens up one of the biggest questions left to fill is who is that Tampa Bay starting running back? Because I don't see a world, even if it's Keyshawn Vaughn, that's the worst case. It's they're kind of incumbent here. The only guy left because Ronald Jones is a free agent. Fournette's a free agent. Vaughn would be my top 15 running backs if he's it. Not because I really like him, just the situation is that glorious given the numbers we saw Fournette put up last year. It's just great for fantasy, and it's just great as obviously a Brady truther my whole life. I get the people that are complaining and saying it's diva-ish and Brady.
It is diva-ish, but you can knock off the complaining. I said to you when he quote unquote retired, I said, I've been anti-Brady for most of his career, and I'm sad to see him go.
Exactly.
And I'm glad to see him back. And he's a diva.
Yes, he's
all of those things are true.
I don't understand the fans that are shitting on this. Brady's back. I was so ready for the world.
It's great.
Why?
It's
just
great.
Be happy he's back, and we get to watch greatness for at least 1 more season. That's how I look
great.
at it.
And by the way, it's way better than when Michael Jordan came back for the Wizards. I mean, Brady was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he hasn't had these I'm taking 2 years off here. I'm taking 3 years off there.
Right.
No, the guy's been there forever. He's been
cool.
awesome. And just to put a cap on this, and then we can move on. It's hilarious to hear you say, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason to believe he won't be, a top 4, top 5 guy next year. And it's you're right. And he's going to be 45.
45.
So there's a reason you could think it. But I mean, he was pretty good when he was 44 and 43. So
right.
I hear what you're saying. It's just funny that we're at this point where this 45-year-old man is about to play, and we're just well, there's no reason to think he can't be one of the best.
The cliff doesn't exist. How crazy! It is so true.
It's just
any
ridiculous.
Other player, 45 in the NFL, no matter what position, you would be saying the cliff.
Even at kicker, you'd
right?
just be oh man, he's ancient.
Yes,
right.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I will say too, I was pumped because on my best ball teams, they're doing a super flex where it's 2 QBs on underdog. Code RSJ if you haven't been playing. Get you a nice $100 up to $100 deposit match. I've been taking Brady as my kind of last couple round stab in a bunch of these, and now I have Kyler Murray and then a 15th round Brady with a stacked squad all around him too. So, obviously that's disappeared. I did a draft today and Brady's going right back in the first round where he belongs. I actually found him in the second, my second draft today too, though. So some values there, and Evans and Godwin, their ADPs are still depressed. So get on in on that underdog action, code RSJ. Go buy Gronk, still going way too late. So check that out too. But man, my teams, I got some real solid squads now. I think I texted you a couple.
Yeah, you've texted me a couple. Your underdog behavior is degenerate behavior.
Oh, it's completely. But I won. I mean, it was a horrible because I won like in the playoffs best ball. I think I won like $600-$700, and now it's just been feeding my.
Yeah. Right.
Once you're in the green, you're like, oh well, I could just draft.
Right. I'll be in the green forever.
Exactly.
All right.
Excited.
I'm excited too. I'm excited too. And I did say at the beginning of the show, just mention really quickly, the diva. I mean, Brady's a diva, and we talk about Aaron Rodgers being a diva. They're both divas, but even though I've pulled for Brady less in his career, he's allowed to be a diva more.
Yeah.
Like I give him a pass more for being a diva because he's so much beyond anybody else, in the game and in the history of the game. It's like, okay, be a weirdo. Be an attention hog.
Do whatever you want.
It's okay. Rodgers, it's like it just rubs you a little bit more the wrong way.
Did you see Giselle's response to him coming back to?
No.
It was like, here we go again. Let's go Bucs. But you could just like picture, somebody commented under it. I'm sure you've seen the picture of like Ben Affleck smoking outside where he's like, it was like, Giselle, here we go again. And it's like Ben Affleck with a cigarette outside, like, yeah, that's exactly how I read it. It says, here we go again. It wasn't an excited. The explanation parts aren't.
No. I don't think she's excited. But the guy, he wants to play football.
Let him, let him. He had two weeks at home watching, Disney Encanto and all those movies, and just was like, nope, I'm good. Going back to the locker room.
Right.
Love it.
All right, let's move on. Deshaun Watson, the latest. So it came out he's not going to be criminally charged with this stuff, and whoever had to sign that document saying he wasn't going to be, before the ink was dry, there were like 10 teams beating down this guy's door. And it's like, on one end, from a football, from a personal, like, moral standpoint, makes me feel kind of dirty.
Of course.
That these teams were just waiting. None of these people actually cared about what he allegedly did, and obviously there's probably some truth to it. There's just so much smoke there. There's got to be some fire. But anyway, they don't care about it. He's a great quarterback, and they're willing to pay through the nose for him. And there's a lot of suitors. So aside from the moral part, aside from the human part, I'm just going to look at this from like a football and a fantasy football part. And the Saints and the Panthers are the teams that are really leading the charge right now to pick this guy up. And it's clear he would really, really help either of them.
Oh, yeah. Wherever he goes, he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good
about this. He's going to be a top 5 quarterback, and he's got the ceiling to be top 3, depending on where he lands. I listed out my 5 favorite spots there. The Saints weren't in there, but the more you think about it, between Kamara, between Michael Thomas, like you think about all those seasons they had with Drew Brees just chucking it down. I know Sean Payton. I wish Sean Payton was still there.
I know.
I would even like it, even more. Maybe this is their way to like lure him back. Who knows? But in 3 full seasons in his NFL career, he's played 4 now. He got hurt as a rookie, and then obviously everything going on last year. But 3 full seasons, he's never finished below QB5. And then the 1 year that he did get hurt, he was the QB1 in points per game. Yeah, he's been QB5 or better all 3 of his full seasons.
Right.
And then again, QB1 in the 1 season he got hurt in points per game. Remember that rookie year? Yeah. He was just like, it was.
Was he the one throwing to Will Fuller?
Yes. When Fuller had like 8 touchdowns.
He had like 8 touchdowns on like 11 catches.
Yep. And I sneaky think, Fuller a free agent, I would not be shocked at all to see those guys link up wherever Watson ends up going if Fuller follows.
I just think Will Fuller, and it's such a waste of money, man. Like
how
many games do you think you're getting out of Will Fuller?
Played any last year.
Okay, I was going to say like 2.5 over.
Exactly, under. But still, if he does play, so damn explosive. Regardless, we did see 4,801 yards leading the NFL the last time we got Deshaun Watson. So wherever he goes, he's going to be I have him ranked at QB5 right now, and I don't really see any spot putting him below there. It's just a matter of, does he go up to QB3 ahead of even Herbert at this point?
Well, I was going to ask you that. Where you said Brady's bumped his way in at 6, because I mean, we had last podcast, we had this discussion, and you had Herbert at 3, and I kind of raised my eyebrow. But then when you went down the rankings, like I think I probably had him at 4. So,
right.
So where's Watson?
He's at, like I said, 5 right now, and then could go up to 3. I don't see him passing Mahomes or Allen in my rankings, but could go up to 3, depending on where he lands. And of course, once we know more, because he could still face a suspension. I know he's been cleared, but the NFL has.
Didn't they say 4 games, maybe?
There's speculation of that, yeah. So obviously that would hurt his shine a little bit. You
miss a
quarter of the season, but you should be able to.
There's no team, and I mean, I know we're a fantasy show, but there's no team that's interested in him that's gonna blanket 4 games.
No. And even fantasy wise, you really shouldn't. You should be able to weather that storm. Maybe that's the difference between him versus Brady. I bump Brady ahead of him if it's a 4-game suspension time.
Yeah, but I'm not sure Brady's gonna start the season.
Why wouldn't he?
I kind of read that into his comeback thing. Like he's like, I'm not coming back now. It's like I took that as like he'll be back at some point. Like maybe not week 1.
He's back.
Okay.
But ultimately, too, it is obviously the biggest domino left to fall because you think, like as I said, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, like Kamara might leap up to my running back too. In that case, Christian McCaffrey, I know as much as you hate him with the injuries and what happened, but you put Deshaun Watson back there. He scored 20 touchdowns, 19. Okay, 1 below 20 with Kyle Allen as the majority starter that year. He could put 25 in if he stayed healthy with Deshaun Watson. A big if with health, but you put Deshaun Watson there, and I might have a hard time passing on even over Jonathan Taylor at that point for Christian McCaffrey. Either way, either of those running backs would become top 3 locks for me, and then either receiver, whether it's DJ Moore, whether it's Michael Thomas. I mean, Moore was actually 6th in wide receiver targets last year. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. It was just such crap thrown to him that he didn't really do anything with it. But if he finally gets that quarterback that's been eluding him, I think that's what would you know how much I hate him on the weekly rankings, and I'm generally been right for it. But if he gets that quarterback, it's never been a question of talent, whether it's him, whether it's Michael Thomas, if that's really who he's limited down to. Both of them would be immediate top 12 receiver potential with Deshaun Watson throwing him the rock.
All right, let's talk about a pair of Cowboys receivers who have, maybe their fortunes are heading in opposite directions. Amari Cooper going to the Browns, so that's the end of his career. And Michael Gallup is staying with the Cowboys, and in Cooper's absence and staying with an already prolific offense, that's certainly going to help his stock quite a bit. You disagree with either of those?
No, not at all. Honestly, I would not be shocked in the least if Michael Gallup outscores Amari Cooper this year. As the number 2 for the Cowboys compared to being the number 1 on the Browns.
He will outscore Amari Cooper this year.
I like it. You're not even like going out on a let. You're just saying, bam, he will. And
I assume that he will. I'm approaching it from the standpoint of, I'll be a little surprised if Cooper outscores him.
Gallup, in these early drafts I keep referencing, he is going probably 4 rounds after Cooper right now. And
that's nuts.
It's mind-blowing. I have Gallup in almost every single draft I've done over the last 3 weeks, kind of assuming this move would play out, and it played out to perfection. I was hoping Cooper would at least land somewhere viable, but you couldn't really pick him on a worse spot than the Browns. I mean, yes, there's going to be plenty of volume, certainly after they released Jarvis Landry, in terms of him being the number 1 on question, but is that volume really going to be all that plentiful, given that they've ranked 30th, 28th, and 28th in passing attempts with Kevin Stefanski, 23rd, 24th, and 27th in passing yards. And Baker Mayfield, if you haven't seen it, just sucks. He's not good. There is rumblings
it's going to be like a Kenny Galladay, like a Lions season.
Exactly.
Like
right. That. Exactly. A Galladay to the Giant. Exactly. That's a great comparison. Good. Okay. But I think Cooper's like a better player than Galladay. I think Galladay's like the fakest
I agree.
Alpha. But even then, like Odell Beckham, I thought was one of the better receivers in the league, and he went there to die with Baker Mayfield. I just don't think this is the offense that supports. I mean, their number 1 receiver the last couple of years, 2020, Landry went 72 catches, 840 and 3. I know they're very different receivers, but 101 targets, meh, very, very meh. And then last year, do you know who their leading receiver was last year? I would never have guessed.
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
It was. Good guess. Wow. Nicely done. Landry did get hurt. He only played 12 games, but Peoples-Jones led the team with 597 and 3. It's just like their offense is the run. It's Nick Chubb. It's Kareem Hunt. Even when Chubb was out, it was Dearness Johnson's show. And that's what Stefanski does. So, real life-wise, Cooper will stretch the field, have a nice impact. I still think he's one of the better route runners in the league. I can't believe it only took a 5th-round pick to get him. I guess it must have been because they knew he was getting released and take whatever we can get type of situation. But man, like I think
that is unbelievably cheap.
Unbelievably cheap. I can't believe that the Browns were the only team to really go after, or that that's the only thing they could get like that. that blows my mind that Cooper went as cheap as he did. But for him, a huge downgrade, one of the biggest downgrades of the offseason so far, in my opinion. And as you mentioned, on the flip side, Gallup, talk about a complete opposite factory. First in total yards and total points last year were the Cowboys. 6th in attempts, 2nd in passing yards, 3rd in passing TDs. You now got 105 vacated targets from Amari Cooper, which isn't enormous. I think it was about 19th in the league last year, but he did miss 2 games. It was about 7 targets a game. You give the Gallup, who probably will slide right into that role, especially giving him $62 million the way they paid him, 5 years, $62 million. They're clearly expecting him to kind of step right into that number 2 receiver role behind CeeDee Lamb. I don't see why he doesn't get those 7 targets a game. And he makes plays every time he's targeted, whether it's draped over the sideline, like in the red zone, pinpoint, dragging the toes. Like, I love watching Gallup play. I am so excited for him to get this opportunity. And yeah, maybe he could have left and become a number 1 somewhere, but I think this is perfect.
I think it's
CeeDee Lamb takes the number 1
situation.
This is his ideal fantasy situation. And if he continues to go where he's going in these early best ball drafts right now, he's going to go down as the steal of 2022. I cannot
agree.
wait.
And like I said, I'd be real surprised if he doesn't outscore Cooper. Like I said, I didn't even really consider it like I really think he will.
And like you make it sound like that's a bold prediction, and I'm with you. Like I really think Gallup.
It doesn't feel bold to me. I'm glad that it is, because like maybe I'll seem really smart in a couple, but it seems just like
it's almost as bold as that year you said Tyreek Hill over Odell Beckham, and you were very, very right.
I've been eating off that prediction for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Zach Ertz resigns with Arizona. I also like how when this is written in the just in text, it also looks like Zach Ertz resigns with Arizona. But no, he resigns. It's the opposite of that. And you like him as a top 6 tight end upside as a result.
I really think he has that. And I know like you had him a couple years ago and it looked like he was dead. I mean, he was running in
Eagles. Yeah.
Remember that? I don't know what's kind of happened since he escaped there, but when he got traded over to the Cardinals, he ranked, these are some crazy stats, ran a route on 80% of the dropbacks. He ran the 3rd most routes among tight ends, 2nd most targets among tight ends following the trade, 2nd most slot routes, was essentially just a big wide receiver, and finishes the tight end 5 from week 9 on when he started with Arizona. Now you got a team that we'll talk about Christian Kirk in a second. He's gone. They have by far the most available offense in terms of volume, 395 vacated targets, 70% of their target share, including 51 red zone targets, 63% of their red zone targets. Just insane, the amount of available volume here for Zach Ertz. They had just a great rapport, him and Kyler Murray. So between the role we already saw him in, and now you remove even more weapons around him, and he's going as like the tight end 14 in these early best ball drafts. A lot of why we're doing this show is get in on that action. Again, code RSJ on Underdog, because there are some steals. I am loading up on Ertz everywhere I can. I don't think there's a tight end that you can pigeonhole for more volume at this point than what this is guys going to see, other than maybe like Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. I could see Ertz finishing 4th among tight ends. Again, he was 3rd in targets when he came over to the Cardinals here, or 2nd in targets. He's going to get peppered. He's not that great of an athlete at this point, but you don't need that. He's going to get open. He's going to do some damage after the catch, and especially in the red zone. Really like this fit. Pumped he landed back there.
All right. This next one cracks me up. I didn't even know you had such a weird banner there, but so it must crack you up a little bit too. It cracks me up for a couple reasons. It cracks me up from a football standpoint, but it also cracks me up just because Carson Wentz just seems like he belongs on the Commanders.
Yeah,
like he just seems like a real good fit for that organization and that owner, and it's like good for you, Carson. He's there. So when you say yay, we're like, I mean, I guess I'm not like excited about it.
No. What's kind of sickening is like I'm being sarcastic with that.
Yeah, sure.
You're not going to be drafting Carson Wentz outside of 2 QB leagues potentially. It might be the best quarterback Terry McLaurin's played with, though. Like it might actually be an upgrade.
He only got Fitzpatrick for like what, a game or something?
A game, and then Heineke, and then before that, it's been what, like Haskins, and just a rotation of shit.
Yeah, like, maybe he might be the best.
This might be the best quarterback that McLaurin's ever played with, which is not a good thing. And I'm not sitting here saying McLaurin's shooting up the rankings right now, but
he's not.
I guess I can't consider it a bad thing for him, and certainly for Logan Thomas and Antonio Gibson. Wentz did have he loves to check it down, whether it was with the Eagles, whether it was with the Colts Nyheim Hines and Taylor, the running backs have consistently had right around a 25 to 30% target share, depending on the team. So I do think this is good for the running backs. Wentz himself, though, I only wanted to put this on there because you read some of the reports after the fact that Wentz stretched back, his issues stretched back to before the season began. Yeah. Over the course of the year, the team was very frustrated what they deemed with a lack of leadership, a resistance to hard coaching, and a reckless style of play that cost them many games.
Well, also he lost him. Go ahead.
I was going to say my favorite part of this, and then, yeah, I mean, you could probably talk about that Jags game. My God, blew their playoff shot, right? But he had tried to reach out to Jim Irsay to have a clear the air meeting, and Irsay just said no.
Right. No, that's what I was hinting at. I've heard said on a couple different podcasts, and I thought this actually independently, that there's just such a kind of like stink on him after the Jaguars game that they were just like, we got to get rid of this guy. Also, I mean, he did miss at least one game because he wasn't vaccinated at one point. And I mean, like turns out every game was key for Indianapolis. Because they ended up missing. They lost to just a terrible, terrible team. They got blown out in that game too. So yeah, it was time for him to go. He seems like a commander to me. And also I think it's hilarious that the Commanders are just going to be called the commies. And, now we've got this beef with Russia. So that's kind of funny too.
Nice. Beautiful. Yeah. But I ultimately expect them to draft the QB of the future. And at most we get 3 to 5 games of Wentz before they turn over the keys to a Malik Willis or Sam Howell, whoever they end up going with. I guess it is of note.
This is not a great year for it. It's really
it's a horrible QB class. And that's maybe why they're testing this out and just seeing if they can have any type of spark with Wentz. It is interesting to note that Heineke, when he first took over, starting from the first, week 2 on, he was a QB1 for 6 of his first 9 games. He top 12 quarterback. So there is fantasy juice in the sense there's decent weapons. They do like to run their quarterbacks a bit there. The fact that Taylor Heineke had multiple games over 25 fantasy points. It's like, okay, maybe there's something better than nothing here. But again, unless
there's something there,
league, I'm probably not going after it.
There's something there, but it's just one of those things where it's like, would you ever feel comfortable with Wentz? I would never I would never trust him. It's not like you can't. I mean, if he had a couple big games, it wouldn't shock me, but I don't trust him.
Not in fantasy, not as a real life quarterback. Right. I don't want anything to ever do with Carson Wentz. Never really have, never really will.
And the Colts now becomes kind of intriguing, intriguing proposition, which we can talk about on another podcast.
Who might end up there? Is it Jimmy G? Is it going to be a rookie? But that's a well-run organization, outside of what they had with Carson there. So I'm intrigued to see who goes there for sure. Yeah,
I am too. It seems like since Andrew Luck, they've just kind of been in a tailspin, a little bit. But even in a tailspin though, they're still respectable. They're not going 3-13 or anything like that.
Right.
All right. Davante Adams. We talked about this at the very top of the show. He's not going to play under the franchise tag, or so he says. And I wondered about this. I wondered if this would happen. And we talk about the implication for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, if he doesn't play, that's a massive implication. That's the thing about going for demanding and getting $50 million a year. It's like, well, the other people that are contributing to your admittedly massive success that Rodgers has had,
right?
He's going to want his, and rightfully so, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we'll talk about Christian Kirk in a second. He got $21 million potentially a year, depending on how he plays.
Insane.
That's insanity. So Davante Adams reportedly was asking for $30 million or more. That seems light. If Christian Kirk is going to get 21, Davante Adams should be getting 40.
Right. Is Davante Adams 50% better than Christian Kirk? I would argue yes.
I would say yes every single day of the week on that one. Yes, 100%.
But he's penciled in right now with the franchise tag to get, I think, 20.5, which is actually less than what Christian Kirk is going to get, which is just
mind-numbing.
So, I mean, he's going to hold out. He says he's going to hold out. Obviously, no one wants him to not play, including himself, I'm sure. But the guy doesn't want to play under the franchise tag. So where do we go from here?
So Christian Kirk and Julio Jones make up 2 of the top 3 paid receivers in the league.
And don't forget, Big Mike Williams is just signed a big deal.
Not far out. Yeah, he's probably in the top 6 there. Yeah, insanity. But yeah, it does. because I was sneaky worried about this idea that
I thought this would happen.
What if Adams does hold out, and then Rodgers will take that opportunity to make it about himself and then say, I'm not going to play unless we get my number one back. And so Rodgers ends up holding out. So like I bumped Rodgers down 3 spots in my rankings, kind of anticipating what if he does hold out? What if Adams holds out? And I bumped Adams. If everything's locked in and good, only Cooper Kupp should be above Adams at this point. But with these question marks, I feel like I have to go Tyreek Hill. I feel like I have to go Justin Jefferson.
You like
Justin some of these
Jefferson
guys I just know are locked in and they got their quarterback situation all set. Like I at this early best ball drafts, I'm bumping down Adams for now because I just have a feeling in my gut this one's going to linger. And I think it's going to linger to Adams. I think it's going to linger to Aaron Rodgers. And I'm going to start avoiding the situation at this point.
Do you really think that Aaron Rodgers will then be like, well, I'm not going to play? If the guy's signing a $50 million contract, I think he's got to play at this point. I think he's going to bitch and moan.
Like, who's going to be his receivers if Adams isn't there?
Nobody.
Exactly. You think he's going to go out there with nobody and just like
you think he's going to sign? You think he's going to sign a 4-year, $200 million contract, not play one game, and be like, I'm not going to play?
I could see that. 100%.
That would be a dipshit move beyond even what I expect from this guy, which is like I expect big time dipshit.
Well, we don't even know that that's his contract either. Remember, trying to steal the spotlight from Russell Wilson just a week ago when he was like, "These aren't the actual terms." You could take 2 seconds with the limelight off of him. I really do think, and I think he would try to make it like, "I'm not playing till my boy gets paid."
I do think he's going to try to. And pretend it's like, oh, I've got Devontae Adams back. And it's really completely self-serving.
It's just about, I don't want to put up horrible numbers with a crap core of receivers. He's going to act like it's some, yeah, exactly.
Although, let's be honest, if Rodgers rolled out with like Lazard and MVS and those guys, he probably still throws 35 touchdowns.
He might, yeah.
Like five picks or something like that.
We've seen it before with like James Jones and like nobodies that he turns into these 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown. I mean, Jordy Nelson didn't do anything any other team he went to.
His career was like over.
He was in the league for years,
No,
Crazy.
I mean, look, Rodgers is a bitch, man. He's great. Yeah. All right, Saquon Barkley. This is a guy who I've been off since his second year in the league. Likely to be traded. Ideal spot. What's his ideal spot? Where would you like to see him go? Do you think he's all right? Let's start. Do you think he's likely to be traded?
Well, all the reports first say the Giants could be open, moving him for a 3rd or 4th round pick. If that's the price.
I mean, think about this. Think about this guy was what? He was the number 2 overall pick in the draft.
Yep.
I think when he came out.
Passed on all the quarterbacks, which I think was like Sam Darnold at the time. So I guess it doesn't look that bad.
Well, and Josh Rosen. Don't forget Josh Rosen.
Oh, yeah. That class.
But also Josh Allen, I believe.
Was Baker Mayfield the number 1 of that year?
Baker Mayfield was 1, and then there was Darnold, Rosen, Allen, and maybe Deshaun Watson. Was he or was it Lamar?
No, Watson was the Trubisky year. It was Watson, Lamar? Mahomes, and Trubisky before both of them.
Okay, was Lamar the end of the round?
Oh, yeah. Lamar might have been the last quarterback taken in the first round.
So
Pats passed on him, yes.
So they took Barkley over, take Barkley over Sam Darnold, take him over Josh Rosen, maybe take him over Baker, but not over Allen, not over Josh Allen, not over Jackson. And I mean, the smart thinking.
I think Allen might have been the year after that, though. I think Allen was the same one as Daniel Jones, who they took Daniel Jones ahead of Allen.
Oh,
so
really?
They still passed on. Yeah, they passed on.
Well,
Allen
either way, the Giants are stupid, no matter how you break it down. I mean, the guy was such a talented running back. Maybe he still is. I don't know. It always seemed like a dumb pick to me. What are you going to bring in a really good running back and have him just play on a shitty team? Like, how many great running backs just put up big numbers and win games for you? Like when they're not playing behind a good offensive line with a good quarterback, it just seemed like throwing good money after bad to me.
I mean, look at the running backs that win games. Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry were both 2nd-round picks. Running backs, you can.
Was Derrick Henry really a 2nd-round pick?
Yeah, you remember that year?
No, I don't. Obviously, I thought
it was crazy.
That's crazy.
He had such an insane combine and still fell to round 2, and I was just like, "What is happening here?"
You were all over that guy, from well before he was ever in the NFL.
Oh yeah, I've been just
the Von Miller comps.
Yeah, that's what really got me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so bring it back to Barkley. I do think, especially if you can be had for a 3rd or 4th round pick. Let's say the Bills get calling, right?
That's
that
so
offense,
cheap.
And you give up a 4th rounder to put a talent like Barkley because, he's had his injury concerns, but when he's been on the field, you're still seeing some of those 45, 50-yard runs that very few running backs can do. He's still shifty as all hell. He is still a great receiver that you can move all over the formation. I mean, if you put him with the Bills, maybe even like, I know the Chiefs spent great draft capital to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I mean, he hasn't panned out. Why not put Barkley behind, in that offense?
Is Barkley really expensive right now? Like, what kind of cap hit are you looking at if you pick this guy up?
I don't think it's too bad because I think he might be on like the tail end, a $7.2 million salary. So that's really not that insane considering, we saw James Conner get that deal, like a $7 million a year type of deal. So it's a pretty reasonable contract.
No, what you're saying about the Bills makes a lot of sense to me.
The Bills would be, I think that's the number one spot, or right now the Bucs. We talked about the value holes. Obviously, the Chiefs are always one of those offenses that you put an explosive talent in it, they're going to be great. You're playing alongside Mahomes. But to me, whether it's the Bills or the Bucs, those would be the top two kind of value holes. It was the Cardinals and the Dolphins in that top 5 conversation for me at this point. But now that Brady's back, if they go and load up and get Saquon Barkley to play with him, let's say Leonard Fournette's gone and they take a stab at Saquon, or if he goes with Josh Allen's offense that's putting up 35 a game, I mean, it'd be hard to take Saquon anywhere besides the first round at that point. So either way, I am starting to bump him up the rankings because I don't see a situation being worse than New York. If someone's going to trade for him, they're probably going to give him volume. And what offense is going to be worse than New York this year? Like, there's very few spots he could go and actually go down in my rankings at this point. So I started to bump Saquon up a little bit because there are a few spots, again, the Bucs or the Bills, where he would become a fringe first rounder for me if he lands there.
Well, and this demonstrates kind of my take on him for the past several years, which is it's got nothing to do with him. It's all about the Giants. And, as soon as you say, oh, Bills, oh, Bucs, like I'm intrigued. I'm interested.
Sign you right back up.
Right. So, exactly. I mean, it's, just further reiterates the point that this is a Giants issue, not a Barkley issue. And I'm pulling for him. I'd like to see the guy go somewhere and land on his feet. I really would.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into some legal tampering. Free agency day one. This is when the free agency period starts, and like at 12 o'clock, and then at 12:01, someone signed a deal. And it's like, well, they clearly haven't spoken to each other before that. They just were really able to hammer out all the legalities and the ins and outs of these complicated contracts in 30 seconds. So yeah, tons of tampering. I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
James Conner going back to Arizona, like you said, he signed a $7 million deal, something like that, $8 million.
3-year, 21. So
$7 million a year.
Yeah, 13 and a half fully guaranteed, could be up to 25 million with incentives. So a good chunk of change.
That seems about right to me, honestly.
After last year, I mean, he earned that, and it's just from a non-fantasy perspective. What a great story! Obviously everything he's went through in his life. You love to see a guy like that get paid after really earning it, taking that 1-year deal, prove it type of deal, and 18 touchdowns, 1,127 yards from scrimmage last year. I mean, what a beast!
He had a great season.
Third overall in total touchdowns in the NFL among runners or receivers there. Incredible stats there. And, they always say touchdowns are fluky. You don't want to chase touchdowns in fantasy, but you consider this: 8th inside the 20 carries, 41, 3rd inside the 10, 28 carries, and 2nd inside the 5 with 16. You look the year before, Kenyon Drake was 5th inside the 20, 1st inside the 10, and 3rd inside the 5. So it's just a role where, Kyler Murray does get his read options, and he does run in for a lot of touchdowns, but the running backs are also getting a lot of cracks at the stripe. And whereas Drake kind of struggled to convert him, Connor was a monster. He get hit by like 4 people and just carry them into the end zone, and he can't be denied. He is one of the best goal line backs of the NFL. Again, 18 touchdowns, don't lie. Some of those were receiving as well.
I saw him make some nice catches this year.
I mean, he had one of the best one-handed catches I've ever seen. Like, this guy can kind of do it all. Of course, the injury concerns, they've lingered with him throughout his career. He missed 2 games last year, but even still, he put up 18 touchdowns in 14 games. I mean, just insanity.
So it was 15 games because the season's longer.
Oh,
now.
Yeah, right.
But also, I mean, just personally, if I'm talking about an NFL running back that's seeing decent volume, and you're going to tell me he's going to play 15 games, he's going to miss 2, sign me up.
Oh,
seriously.
Exactly.
Like, I don't consider that a red flag of any kind. 2 games as a, whatever that comes with the territory. These guys take so much contact every play. You can withstand that and miss 2 games and have a productive season. Like, to me, you're like an Iron Man.
Right,
So,
exactly. And so that was like you're saying, I was more encouraged than anything that the fact that he only missed 2 games after we've seen a string of bad injuries. Now, could he, of course, could that rear its ugly head? Yeah, but
sure,
he showed us he could sustain, a pretty monstrous workload like he had back in Pittsburgh, the running back 5. Him and his running back coach, we kind of connected these dots early last year. Chase Edmonds was getting all the hype, and I remember being you and Kendall, I remember wrote about this too, one of our best writers. Just like, let's pump the brakes on Edmonds a little bit because Connor's a goal line beast and he might end up getting the touchdowns. Never mind, he ended up taking almost the entire workload alongside that. And just to reiterate again, the Cardinals, 395 targets up for grabs. And I know a lot of those are receiver targets, but it could trickle down easily to James Conner, who made some of the best catches at the running back position last year. So this is a great landing spot. You couldn't have landed better if you're James Conner. I bumped him up to running back, I believe 14 right now. And the more we talk about it, it feels kind of low.
Seems a little low, right?
He was the running back 8 last year, even missing all those games. So okay, here's some names. Connor, Montgomery, Jones, Zeke, Gibson, Swift. Like,
I definitely like him better than some of those guys.
Right. Maybe Zeke and Jones and Montgomery, should be below Connor.
I kind of think, who are the other guys?
Gibson and Swift as well. I probably have Swift and Gibson, the younger.
I would probably have those guys above Connor, but I mean, if you told me he's going to outscore all those guys, I wouldn't say that was nuts.
He did last year, right? He scored all of them. So he outscored Chubb. I mean, he was a beast. He had an absolutely beastly season, and if anything, his situation's better because Chase Edmonds is gone, who we're about to talk about. Let's
talk Chase Edmonds, actually.
So if anything, James Conner's walking into a better situation than the one that he just scored 18 touchdowns in. I mean, that's fantasy gold. Right. And again, these early, I keep putting it. I'm not just doing this to promote Underdog. I love him. Code RSJ. He's going in round like 7 or 8 right now. He should be going in round late 2nd, early 3rd at latest. So I am just gobbling him up as many times as I can right now.
Chase Edmonds, who we just talked about, he just signed a 2-year, $12.6 million deal with the Dolphins. We want to know, is he a high-end running back too? You said Barkley is a $7.2 million hit. This is $6.3 million for Chase Edmonds. Makes Barkley seem like a great deal for a year or so. What do you think about this?
Well, I think that's a pretty good indicator that they might view this guy as their number 1 running back. I mean, you don't give him top 10 running back money to not use him. And I think it's a great situation. As I said, entering free agency, they were number 3 on my list because Mike McDaniel's the run game coordinator for Kyle Shanahan, those 49ers. You don't need to get me all horned up by anything more than just talking about his own running scheme of Kyle Shanahan. Like, that is the most beautiful, picturesque scheme, and this guy was the coordinator of it. So now he comes over to Miami where there's really no competition. Myles Gaskin might be the worst starting running back in the NFL last year. So I think Chase Edmonds, especially if this is all they do at the position, is the immediate number 1 running back here. Great receiver. Saw even in that timeshare with James Conner, saw 20th in the NFL in targets and receptions. So the guy can catch. He can be a 3-down back. In fact, the games that Conner missed, he put up 26.7 and 13.2 PPR fantasy points. So especially that 26-point effort, nothing to sneeze at. The reason he's kind of been a disappointment in fantasy, he doesn't really get the goal line volume, especially when Conner was there. But the games where he started, scored 3 touchdowns at 26 points. So, I mean, he can get it done in every single facet. I think this offense is certainly under the rise under new coach Mike McDaniel. If Tua is anything decent, and I'm not ready to throw the towel in on Tua yet. Between Waddle, they added Cedrick Wilson, we'll talk about. This offense could be sneaky on the rise. And if Edmonds is the main focal point, he deserves to be considered a high-end RB2. So he's bumped up now to my running. It's tricky, though, because then you look at, okay, does he go above Damian Harris, who had a monster year last year? Does he go above, where do some of these rookies land? Does Devin Singletary, if nobody's added for the Bills, does Edmonds go above him? What about Travis Etienne? The first-round rookie for the Jags.
I like him better than Etienne, but, I mean, your point is a good one, which is – but, I mean, it's the middle of March.
Right.
But I think we'll have a lot more clarity, or as much clarity as one can actually ever have in fantasy football.
Absolutely.
When we get more into July or something like that. I think
it does go to illustrate running back. I remember when we first started our podcast, there was 2 good running backs in fantasy.
Yep.
And it was all about receivers. There definitely has been an influx of workhorses and there's committees here and there, but there's about 25 solid RB2 running backs right now. Whereas there was a few years where it was maybe 6 names that you'd feel okay with as your running backs.
Right.
Edmonds now enters that that pool for me. Depending where all the rookies shake out, he could go anywhere from like 20th to 25, but I do really love this spot. I love the scheme. And I really like the player. Again, anytime he's been that starter, we've seen like 30-point days. We've seen, again, last year, 26. He's really stepped up when he gets the volume. So I am very intrigued. I think this was a best case for his value, is to escape Connor's shadow, get to a nice situation, and Miami really represents that.
All right. Let's talk about Mitch Trubisky, because we actually talked about him on the last podcast, and we were kind of like a little bit cautiously intrigued. At least I know I was a little bit. It's like maybe he's not as terrible as we thought he was. I mean, he's always going to have a little bit of a stink on him because they picked him so high, and they picked him above people that they shouldn't have picked him over. But he's played for just an atrocious team and for an atrocious coach and stuff like that. And he does have an arm. And now, is he going to the Steelers? Is that what's going on? Because, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if the guy put up some numbers.
No. I mean, the Steelers love to chuck it. From 2014 to 2018, when they had, Ben Roethlisberger had an actual arm, they ranked top 5 in passing yards for 5 straight years, top 6 in touchdowns for 4 of those 5 years. I don't think they're going to just uncork like prime Big Ben offense and translate that to Mitch Trubisky. No,
but I'll bet you Trubisky is better this year than Ben was last year.
Yes, 100%. And they threw the 15th most times in the NFL with a corpse at quarterback. So, right in the middle of the pack, pass attempts. I think Trubisky could do some real damage with Claypool, with, of course, Deontay Johnson.
Good receivers, man. They have very good weapons. They really
Pat
do.
Fry is like really emerged as a solid option. I said the Steelers were my number 2 option for Deshaun Watson in terms of fantasy, with the Bucs being number 1. Now the Bucs have been crossed off, and now obviously the Steelers are crossed off because they have Trubisky here, but that was because of the volume that's available to their quarterbacks, because of the weaponry he'd be playing with. And last time we saw a Trubisky play most of the season, he won 11 of his 14 starts in 2018.
Like 11-2 or something like that.
Led exactly. 11 of his 14 games they started, he won. Was the quarterback 12 in points per game for fantasy, averaging over 21 points per game. The guy he has the arm. He can certainly run. That was, one of the sneaky things about him is he has that Konami upside. So I expect the Steelers to probably draft someone developmental behind him. And, maybe we don't get a full year Trubisky, but for however long he's starting, I would not be shocked at all to see top 15 numbers. So certainly in these type of super flex drafts where he's going as like the quarterback 30 and things of that nature, he definitely should get bumped up. And I have him ranked right around quarterback 24, ahead of Daniel Jones.
Sure. I'd have to see the list, but I would imagine I would have him a decent amount higher than you do, actually.
Oh yeah, above Daniel Jones, above Carson Wentz with the Commanders, certainly. Where it gets tricky is like, okay, what about Trevor Lawrence and now all these new weapons? I
would pick Trubisky over Lawrence, definitely.
Really? Okay, so you're really out on Lawrence.
Well, I've been out on Lawrence. I called that.
You never were
No, I wasn't. Although that was more commentary on being out on Urban Meyer from the jump.
Me too. And that's why I'm like, not
so we'll see. But look, I gotta see it for the Jaguars. The talent on the Steelers is not in dispute. Okay, no. and I like the Steelers coaches. I really do. So we'll see if Trubisky's going to have success. It's going to be here, and if he's not the real deal, we'll know it before too long.
That's what I love about it. There will be no excuses. He's got the talent. He's got the coaches. He's got the scheme. If Trubisky's anything,
we'll know it, and we'll be like, wow, this is a cool fit here.
We'll know in I think a game or two. Like he'll either throw 3 touchdowns and 300 yards week 1, or he's going to throw 3 picks, and we'll never hear of Trubisky again.
Except not a pick 6, because the guy evidently doesn't throw those.
Never has.
Even though I can see 4 or 5 of them clearly in my mind.
Right? That's the weirdest thing. I clearly, exactly.
It's like, Mitch? Nah. No. All right, well, let's talk about the Jags, because you just alluded to Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be key to anything the Jags do, good or bad. Christian Kirk, this is the one I don't know how long we need to talk about it, but I'm sure we have the same take on it. He's getting paid by the Jags $84 million. I feel like he's guaranteed 72 or something like that. It's a massive chunk of change for a guy who has, I would say, on his best day, been he's a pretty good receiver.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Christian Kirk, he's pretty good. Pretty good. Not awesome. I've never heard anybody say Christian Kirk was awesome. They thought he's a pretty good receiver. He's pretty good wide receiver 3 on your team.
Right. Not number 3 in terms of NFL salary.
No. Like
Certainly,
the third best guy on your team.
certainly not. No, never had 1,000 yards in his career. His highest fantasy finish is the wide receiver 26, and that was last year. Otherwise, he's been the wide receiver 58, 38, and 51. I mean, not even a top 36 wide receiver, a wide receiver 3 for 3/4 of his career. And yeah, he did have a great year, and he made some great plays. And I think he's like a nice number 2, getting paid as the number 3rd receiver in the NFL. Never mind that Doug Peterson, he's never had a single 1,000-yard receiver in Philly. He had pure crap to work with. So, I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole and say Doug Peterson doesn't throw to his wide receivers, but he does love throwing to his running backs and tight ends. We saw Zach Ertz lead the team in receiving all 4 years of Doug Peterson being the play caller there. We saw the running backs get peppered, whether it was Sproles or even like Corey Clement had some decent seasons over there. So, I don't know exactly what to make of this for him. Peterson does like to throw. It was 6th, 13th, 7th, and 8th across his 4 full seasons as a play caller there. So, I mean, the guy does like a passing-based attack, but it's very like slow and methodical. And Kirk is pretty quick and nimble and could do some damage after the catch. And you got to assume, giving him this type of money, they're going to be scheming it up for him big time. But this was not the spot I wanted to see him. And I certainly just don't understand the deal at all. Like, does he get bumped up?
Were there other suitors that were like, we'll offer you $20 million a year? And the Jags were like, well, guess we got to offer him 21. I mean, this is I see this in the NBA. I follow salaries a lot closer in the NBA. I'm a big basketball fan. And I see all the time, somebody will sign just this massive contract. And I'm like, was there anybody they were bidding against even? Like, right. Because, just standard, like if I'm trying to buy a fantasy player in an auction, like I'm at least going to see if anyone's bidding against me before I start out with like $45.
I know.
I want to make sure somebody else was going to go 44.
I would love to know like what was the next closest offer. And there were tons of rumors that like he might get $15 million a year and his market was really hot at the combine and everybody was kind of raving about him. So it does sound like there was definite interest in him. But again, 3rd highest receiver in the league salary, probably not that level of interest. I
want to say like, oh, well, the Jags must know what they're doing, but that would be a stupid thing to say.
You kidding me? Yeah, that would be the understatement of the year. Jeez. But like the guy we already talked about, Michael Gallup. Give me Michael Gallup as the 2 on the Cowboys all day, then the number 1, supposed number 1 on the Jags. I don't love this fit. I don't understand the move at all. But hey, it's the Jags.
We got to finish this up because CJ's making some comments that I have to respond to. Nice. Evan Engram also joins the Jags, 1 year, $9 million. You said that, Peterson does like to throw to the backs, does like to throw to the tight end. Engram is a guy also who we have liked in the past, but has been a victim of being on the Giants. So now it's like, well, these Giants have ruined my career. I'm going to go to Jacksonville. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's like we'll see. We'll see. Right. I mean, we'll see.
Oh man, but it's similar to Trubisky in the sense to me that like if Engram doesn't do it here, I don't really see when it will happen.
Agreed.
Given that Peterson loves tight ends and there's nobody really. Dan Arnold in his path. Come on now. He threw to Ertz, tight end 6. So Ertz finishes the tight end 6, tight end 3, tight end 2, and tight end 4 across Peterson's 4 full seasons. He saw 106, 110, 156, and 134 targets as the main vein of their passing attack. That was 6th, 4th, 1st, and 2nd in terms of NFL tight end targets right there. In multiple big seasons, 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, 916 and 8 touchdowns. So if Ingram's ever going to capitalize on this insane athleticism and this big slot receiver that he was rumored to be in free agency, this is the spot it's going to happen. And they paid Christian Kirk a shitload, but it's still just a collection of kind of shit that a few people can ascend to the top very easily. And I could see Engram definitely being the number 2 after Kirk, Kirk, then Engram, and then Etienne as like their top 3 receivers. I could definitely see something like that, given that Chark's likely gone and Marvin Jones could be gone, a cap casualty. So I think this, again, you don't ever think Jacksonville.
Let me ask you this: all these things you could see. Could you see the Jags going 4-13?
I think that'd be like way too many wins for the Jags, to be honest.
just checking.
but fantasy
I could see it.
I do. I like the fit. I would say I just checked my tight end rankings and I realized I didn't, Engram news kind of broke right as we were going on air here. I'd slide him in, if I'm bumping Ertz up to my tight end 11 behind Gesicki, maybe even ahead of Gesicki the more I think about it.
I think he should be ahead of Gesicki.
Yeah, I do too. Maybe even ahead of Dawson Knox, given the volume.
Maybe.
He's right in that range, at least, assuming that this is sneaky. Like, these tight end signings are actually pretty big for Knox, because there was a lot of rumblings that Evan Engram was of interest in Buffalo, that Gronk was of interest in Buffalo. So we might see Knox dodge a couple huge bullets here and emerge as a nice top 8 tight end. But back to Engram himself, I think he kind of slides in. I had him at 22 as a free agent. I would say right around like Higbee, Logan Thomas, that kind of range. Does that seem unreasonable to you?
No, it doesn't seem unreasonable. I want to say I probably like Higbee a little bit more and Thomas a little bit less. So yeah, I guess I consider that. I guess I consider that
range, like the Cole.
I don't love any of these guys.
No, especially now that Gronk's back. Like, I want my tight end by Gronk, Dalton Schultz, like Zach Ertz tier. But yeah, like Engram is a last round type of flyer if you're taking late stabs at tight ends. I think there's going to be some volume his way, and I think he's a good athlete. So I'm intrigued to see what happens here. I'm going to own him more than I'm going to have Christian Kirk at their probably respective prices.
Undoubtedly, yes. All right, let's knock these out quickly, and then let's hit the comments.
These are the last two.
All right, quick other deals made. Isaiah McKenzie's going back to the Bills. Cool. Cedrick Wilson to the Dolphins. Also cool. And Mo Alley Cox back with the Colts. And you say this is a big deal.
I think all three of these could end up being very, very underrated signings. Most likely to me is Isaiah McKenzie, 2-year, $8 million. That's not like complete chump change. It signals probably the release of slot receiver Cole Beasley. We know that Emmanuel Sanders is a free agent this year. So Diggs, and then of course you got Gabe Davis ascending to that clear number 2 role. You got Knox, but this offense can certainly sustain 4 mouths. And whenever we've seen McKenzie get used, it's very, very rare. So that, why is it so rare? Is he really that good? But the couple times he started, so the last 2 years, he started twice. He had 11 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown last year. Was the wide receiver 4 against the Patriots. So I saw that one very clearly. And he was wide open all day, just zipping right after the catch, zipping all over the field. Nice cuts. I was shocked that they don't use him more. And then 5 catches, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 2020 when he got a start, was the wide receiver 7. So the 2 times he started, he's been a top 7 receiver in fantasy. Not saying obviously you extrapolate that for 16 games or anything like that, but this was the best spot for him to go back home with likely Beasley released. I think McKenzie could be a great little last round stab. Cedrick Wilson, I was kind of hoping would go back to the Cowboys given Cooper's gone. I know they re-signed Gallup, but I was hoping he would kind of fill that Gallup role when he did so well last year when Gallup got hurt. He had 19 and 29 fantasy points across his last 2 weeks when Gallup was removed from the lineup. So we've seen Cedrick Wilson get it done. I just don't know that. I think the Dolphins will probably be run heavy. I think Chase Edmonds is going to get a decent target share. I think between Waddle, Gesicki,
Waddle's on the up.
Waddle's certainly on the up. So I don't know that this was a great spot for Cedrick. I was hoping he'd go to the Cowboys, but I do like the player and I like what I've seen him do. So there's really beyond those two, Gesicki and Waddle. Yeah, Edmonds will catch some balls too, but there isn't really too many other mouths that you got to worry about. So maybe Cedrick does okay there. Certainly, again, $22 million, 3-year deal. Like, that's not nothing for a wide receiver. No. So, decent deal for him. Yeah.
Crazy, just like, a salary like that for someone like Cedrick Wilson, a salary like we're talking about for Christian Kirk. And it's like, whether you're a free agent or not is such a big deal because a pile of scraps for Amari Cooper.
I know, right? I can't
it's
believe
it's such a disparity, and it's like it's just amazing.
I'd put Cooper way above, like tiers above any of these names we've talked about.
Sure,
Christian Kirk, in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like that he went for a 5th round pick, and Christian Kirk's getting the 3rd most. I don't know.
I'm sure it doesn't make sense to Cooper.
But I am shocked.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, but you mentioned Mo Alley Cox too. That's just because Frank Reich loves peppering his tight ends. Our boy, we haven't even had a chance to pour one out yet for our boy Jack Doyle, who is now retired.
What
just
a guy.
The beanstalk himself, leaving us high and dry. Our all-time, the first player that we just truly raved about on a podcast, Jack Doyle.
Yeah, staple of the Roto Street Journal Nutcracker set for like 2 years.
I know. Always will be in our hearts. But now Mo Alley Cox, the only tight end really in town now, re-signed to the team. 3-year, $18 million, $6 million a year for Mo Alley Cox. you got to look at this numbers and just say the team clearly has a role in mind for these guys. He's a big 6'5", can move. He's athletic. We've seen him use that frame in the red zone pretty well. I think he deserves some like solid top 20 tight end buzz that I don't think anybody was really thinking of until now. As the lone guy in a tight end friendly scheme, we don't know who his quarterback's going to be yet, but I could see him hauling in, 6 touchdowns and 600 yards. Not bad for a last round desperation.
Yeah, you could get it. Yeah, he's a last round guy.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, and then we'll dive through the mailbag real quick. Some line improvements, movement. The Bengals and the Bills have both improved. I don't think the Bengals could possibly have gone down, like unless they added like you and me to protect the left side or something like that.
All conference left tackle over here now. I got a good kick step. I can get back there with the best of them.
How long ago was that?
A long time ago, ACL surgery ago.
Just checking, right?
And I certainly was not blocking 290-pound monsters that run like 4.5s.
You were blocking like 5'10", maybe 200 pounds. Maybe.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
All right. And the Bucs line takes a bit of a hit. It's a little bit concerning given the return of Tom. They will probably try to remedy that. One thing you don't want is you don't want Tom taking hits.
No,
I mean, no, and that's something that Brady has, to his coach's credit, to his whatever. I mean, they have realized the recipe for success for quarterbacks. Surprised more people don't try to do that. Is like, we don't want him getting the shit kicked out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to do something there. Obviously, the Bengals got to do something to protect Joe Burrow. I mean,
yeah,
or else he's going to have like a 4-year career.
And they're making some moves. So just to rapid fire through them, the biggest move, actually not a team on that banner, is the Jags did sign Brandon Scherf. He's like the prize jewel of the interior line, the biggest guard. The biggest prize jewel still out there is left tackle Terron Armstead from the Saints, like a monster anchor left tackle. Dwayne Brown, also a left tackle that has had some great years with the Seahawks, was unbelievable with the Texans for a while. He's kind of on his back nine here, but still a dependable left tackle. So I really hope to see the Bengals also add one of those two guys, but they've certainly fortified that interior where they were getting blitzed. I mean, you saw Aaron Darnold just eating up that interior line in the Super Bowl, and he'll eat up anybody, but they did add Ted Karras, a 3-year starter from the Pats, nice $18 million 3-year contract. And they plucked Kappa, a starter from the Bucs, a right guard there, 4-year, $40 million. So they're putting some real investment in the line. That's exactly what we wanted to see. You knew they would, but it's great to see that kind of play out. So great reinforcements for that line. Again, I want to see a tackle now arrive there for sure, but good wins for them. Then the Bills also re-signing their center to a nice deal and bringing in Roger Saffold, a beastly left guard over from the Titans, was the man behind that monster Todd Gurley season was with the Rams. Then he got a huge deal from the Titans, had a couple monster years paving paths for Derrick Henry, and then he became a free agent this year, and the Bills gobbled him up. So, whoever ends up being that back there, if it's Barkley, if it ends up being Singletary, a nice line pavement there. So yeah, some decent moves there, but the Bucs getting plucked, given that their center, they did get their center back, but lost both of their guards, one to retirement, one here. You saw them get eaten.
You wonder if he would have retired if he had known Brady was coming back.
Well, they actually asked him if he's going to come back now, and he said no. He's like, no, I'm going to get my master's degree. I'm done with the NFL.
I respect that.
Yeah. So those are a couple of winners, but we still need to see, again, Terron Armstead, Dwayne Brown, even like Trent Brown from the Pats is just a monster at the tackle position. Eric Fisher was a starting left tackle this year. So there's still some dominoes to fall, particularly at the tackle position, but a lot of the interior guys have been plucked here, with the Jags, the Bengals, and the Bills being the big winners of those.
All right, that's going to do it for basically our rundown. That was pretty solid, actually. We got
a lot of stuff about. Yeah, we went through that pretty efficiently.
Yeah, that was not bad.
An hour was an hour, but still, I mean,
we still managed. We went on a bunch of tangents too, because that's what makes the show better when we do that. Anyway, we're going to go through. We got a handful of mailbag questions. We'll try to hit those, and I'll still probably get out of here on time. Mitch Chavez, Road Journal super fan.
Too.
What's up, Wolf and Truth? Been a minute. Hope all is well. It has been a minute, Mitch, but it's good to see you. All is well. Thanks for asking, and hope all is well with you too.
Mitch. Indeed. Hope everything's well with you. And if you're still here with us and you haven't already, whether YouTube, Facebook, please consider hitting that thumbs up button. It does truly help us to continue to grow. I saw we're back over 2K. A couple people came back for us. Love it.
About time. David says, "Hey, Wolf and Truth, what's going on, guys? I'm getting too used to this impromptu weekly video."
Yes.
Good. Get used to it. It's going to keep happening. So where do Evan Engram, James Conner, Deshaun, and Brady all go in the rankings? I think we probably touched on all of those, but just real quick, slap a number on each of those guys in case he wasn't here when you.
Yep, Watson QB5, Brady QB6, Conner still kind of figuring that one out, but top 15 for sure, and approaching the top 10, kind of in that range. It's again a pretty deep running back class. The more and more you look at it this year, 2022 class, just a crop in terms of fantasy. And then Evan Engram, like tight end 15 to 18 range, and that like tight end 2, but I'd like him as my tight end 2. I do want to get some shares of him, but I don't want him as my starter type of position.
And Mitch says Kirk got a huge bag. He did.
I will never understand. I think that's going to go down as one of the worst free agent signings of all time. I like Christian Kirk. I had him in fantasy. I actually cut Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah, as I said,
idiot.
he's as I said, he's a pretty good wide receiver.
Like pretty good. He deserved a pretty good contract, and he got the third biggest among receivers. It's going to jack it up for everybody else. I mean, you wait until somebody who's actually really good comes up. I know. Seriously.
And maybe Devontae is that guy. We'll see.
Devontae, yeah. The Packers must be so pissed right now.
Well, you see this in all sports. Like you see the role players all of a sudden get these big contracts, and then and that's how someone like Aaron Rodgers ends up with $50 million.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anthony, right? Because someone like Kirk Cousins gets 40 or something like that. Anthony Fella, what's up? Wolfpack, what are your thoughts on Davante Adams not wanting to play under the franchise tag in Green Bay? So we did talk about this earlier, but I'll just say quickly in response, like, I get it.
Yeah. You watch Kirk get paid more than you. He 100%. I do not think this is like a threat that's going to go unanswered. I think if they do not pay him, I don't think we're going to see Davante Adams. And I'm nervous about it. I know we talked about it in more depth earlier, but this is the news that like, I think people will brush off like, oh yeah, he'll come back eventually. No, I don't think we see Adams this year if he does not get paid. And then I think that coincides with us probably not seeing Rodgers. This news is going to be, I think, sneaky huge. I really think Rodgers would hold out if Adams doesn't play. And he'd market it as selfless, all here for my teammates bullshit. But we really know he just doesn't want to play with shit bums.
He's such a jerk off. Chris Jason, Tom Favre Brady is the biggest tool in the NFL right now. I love that Bruce Arians and the Bucs called his bluff and won.
I do like that too. I do
rebuttal. Trade-off.
I do not think he is the biggest tool of the NFL ever. I'd love Tom Brady.
There are definitely bigger tools.
Certainly. But I also do like that he got his bluff called. Like I did find that, like, Bruce Arians, like, you're playing with us or you're not playing. And then Brady was just like, all right. He comes back.
Bruce Arians, like, who looks like he's going to have a stroke like all the time. And he's just like, he's under contract.
It does piss me off a little bit. Like, the Pats kind of should have called his bluff a few years ago and just never let him leave. But, I also get, like, it was kind of time too. And I'm happy for him that he won a title somewhere else. So it's not always that, was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Like, it was Brady. we could have that debate forever, but
it was both. It was both. They were both super important. 909 Orbits. What's good, boys?
What up, my man? Yeah, the man of the cursed QB, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Remember, like every week he'd stream somebody and like, God damn it, I'm streaming the same person.
Always terrible.
Always horrible.
Chris Jason on tilt here, by the way, in the comments. Big year coming from Lawrence. Love him with Peterson. I like that they're protecting him and giving him a weapons upgrade with Kirk, Engram, and Zay Jones. I like Trubisky.
They signed Zay Jones now too. Oh,
I know, yeah.
Better gonna blow up now. Zay Jones.
I love the weapons cabinet they're surrounding this guy with. Yeah, definitely.
It's all just a bunch of mediocre. Like
it's a bunch of mediocre, and Lawrence is not established as anything other than mediocre himself yet. You got to prove it. I remember he had like one good game last year, and you're like, I don't know. And I was like, you're grading this guy on a sliding scale because like he's been so bad. Other than that, like
I know,
he has not been good.
He came in as like the can't miss, like Peyton Manning style. He was so good. He hadn't lost a game in, however many years. Like I was shocked. And I do think a lot of it was the Urban Meyer effect. And I know Peterson got fired and like had hit a little bit of his stink, but I mean, Carson Wentz had an MVP style year under him. Nick Foles obviously had some monsters. Like I do think if Peterson's the type of guy that could resurrect him, and certainly they're giving him the weapons. So kind of similar to Trubisky. If he sucks this year, we're going to know it's Lawrence. Like he doesn't have an insane number one type of weapon or anything like that, but they're going all out to give him every type of weapon you could ask for. They're giving him the best.
If you threw Lawrence in a better situation, I don't know what I would think. So everybody thought he was like the sure thing coming out. And I was not sold on that. Like I knew Peyton Manning was going to be the shit. I knew Andrew Luck would be really good. when he came out. There are guys that have come out where I've just been like, yeah, they're going to be great. And Lawrence, I wasn't complete. I saw the talent. I saw like the potential. I thought he could be really good. But when I saw him go into Jacksonville, certain much less Jackson, or even more so Jacksonville, coached by just like really maybe the worst coach that's come through the NFL in like the last 40 years.
What a disgrace.
I was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I was like, if he produces, it's going to be like, he's going to be like John Elway level good, because like he's in a situation that is like just garbage. So we'll see what happens. Like you said, I think we'll know a lot pretty fast, and I'm looking forward to it.
I know. I think Peterson could do. I'm excited for it too.
Chris says, I don't give a shit how much money they're spending. They had the most cap space. Guess what, Chris? I don't give a shit how much money they're spending either. I don't care at all. I'm not like cringing when what's his name, Khan, writes a check. I don't care.
No, exactly. I mean, hey, whatever. They have the money to blow, and they're blowing it. So I'd rather see them spend it than sit on it. But
I mean, I would like to see if they're going to just blow money in Jacksonville, I'd like to see them build like, a life-size marble statue of Blake Bortles outside the stadium.
Exactly. The true God to run through there.
Right. Lord Blake. Patrick Sullivan, could you see the Steelers or Niners going for Watson from the Texans? Not anymore, because it seems like the Steelers are pretty much got their guy, and it seems like the Saints and the Panthers are the front runners for Watson. So
I was shocked that the Steelers didn't go harder at him.
Did you see that meme where they said like he doesn't fit with our culture? Was that real?
That was very real, and it's like, come on,
that was real. That wasn't a joke.
No, it wasn't. You would think it was like an Onion spoof, right? It wasn't.
No, I did. I didn't put it out there because I didn't want everyone to be like, you idiot. That was like a satire.
No,
website.
It wasn't. That was real. That came from their ownership, which is just blows my mind. After
so how this maybe not the most self-aware ownership group.
Absolutely,
but no, you've had a rapist playing quarterback for you for the last 16 years, right?
Right. I know. So no, it sounds like the Steelers are out, and certainly after signing Trubisky, like not that should stop them from going after Watson, but it probably will. Matt, the Bears took Trubisky over Watson. Now the Steelers make the same mistake. I don't know what's happening there, but I can't imagine the Niners, after selling the farm to go move up to Trey Lance, one, they won't have the ammunition to go get Watson, and two, like, unless the Texans loved Trey Lance and like valued him similarly as the 3 first rounders or whatever,
which would be insane.
Insane. So I don't see either of those. I mean, certainly both would be amazing fantasy spots if you landed in either of them, but neither seem realistic. And it sounds like all the reports, it's kind of come down now to the who were we talking about earlier, the Panthers and
the Saints.
And the Saints. Yeah. So it's going to be one of those two is what Cleveland's apparently the dark horse. They might trade Baker and a few first rounders to get him. That would be interesting too.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'd have to revisit the whole Cooper thing.
I would change my entire tune on Amari Cooper.
This is my mid-March take. All right, let's finish this up. I got to go. Mitch Chavez.
Have you got a run through? Do you want me to wrap up the mailbag?
There's like 2 comments left. Let's just,
all right.
Tyreek Hill sort of money is absolutely insane. Hill was in talks for the extension. Kirk gets that. Yuck. Agree. Yuck, Mitch.
I know. I wonder what Tyreek's going to get now. Holy hell.
Does Brady win the Super Bowl next year? Been on a rotation for about 8 years now. After he loses in the playoff, the next year he wins the Super Bowl. I mean, my money is not on him winning the Super Bowl, but he's certainly a factor. You got to talk about him. I mean, it's hard to ever bet on one guy. We got 32 teams or whatever, and 8 to 10 legit, maybe contenders at some time or another. So it's really hard to just bet on one guy. But sure, he's going to be there. He'll be in the mix with
absolutely
4 or 8 teams to go.
Let's see what happens with Adams too. Like if this Packer situation does start to crumble, not that Rodgers going to blow it anyways in the playoffs, like he always does, that little bitch. But the NFC just seems to be getting weaker and weaker, whereas the AFC is becoming like the Mahomes and Allen showdown. Now Russell Wilson's over there, and like Herbert could be on there. So yeah, I think Brady has as good of a shot as anybody. He wouldn't be coming back if he didn't feel that way. So I'd put my money on Brady if I had to pick one team to back. It'd be the Bucs right now.
I got to think about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Bulldog 0921. Sup, gents. Sup, Bulldog.
Good to see you, Bulldog.
And
thanks
Mitch
for coming on in, brother.
And Mitch says, have a great night. Thanks, Mitch.
We keep both. Thank you, Mitch. We really appreciate you being here. It was great to have you back, my man. Thank everybody that was tuned in with us. It seemed like there was like a solid, good amount that just kind of stayed with us the whole time. Love that. If you're still here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that thumbs up. Make sure you check out RoadStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. I know my man CJ's eating those stock watches right now, capturing all the big news that is that's flying around. if there's big news that breaks tomorrow, I know, Truth, you got some basketball games you got to hit for Serena, but I can always get live if needed, or we might rejoin on Wednesday if she doesn't have the championship, or maybe Thursday, our usual time. We'll be back again, though. There's going to be more news. The way this is all going, I'm sure we'll know more about Watson in the next couple of days, and there's some big name free agents still out there to fall. So yes, we will be sure to cover it all, but this was a big one. This is a lot of dominoes falling on this first day. So we were pumped to be able to cover this with you. All our write-ups will be again at roaststreetjournal.com. I'll be publishing my updated rankings tonight with all the news that has impacted them. And again, roaststreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. I'm the wolf.
I'm the truth.
In the world of fantasy sheep, be the wolf, guys. Later.